I'm underwater, I feel weightless, and I feel like there's so much mystery. It's so different from everything above the water, and that sounds like an obvious thing, but it's just something that's kind of awesome in the truest sense of the word. You don't know what you're going to see, you don't know what's going to happen, and there's always a slight panic about it. There's a slight pressure about getting to the surface again, breathing your air, and there's just an edge to being underwater, and I just really enjoy that.
Pearl farming has its set of challenges, there's no question about it. From the fish that want to eat your oysters to hurricanes that want to blow you off the water, and sometimes we get sharks, giant barracuda, to even people who want to steal your oysters. But all the challenges don't end in the water. They go far beyond that to the market. Now the hardest part of pearl farming is selling our pearls for a price that sustains our work and lets us do what we love to do.
A lot of low quality pearls, a lot of small pearls are being put out on the market. So there's really an overproduction. That's driving the price down. And there's actually nearly a bit of a rarity in top high quality, large cultured pearls from Tahiti. It started 50 years ago here. And then what was happening is that everybody was moving to Tahiti, to the capital. There were no jobs here on the atolls, on the outer islands. And then came pearl farming, and people could actually stay here. And what happened is that people no longer emigrated to Tahiti, but some of the people who had in the past emigrated to Tahiti actually came back. So it gave many of these islands really a future. So it's great to have this high value resources that pearls are, and that people can do that using indigenous resources, the local resources.
Once you have your oyster that's about 2.5 or 3 years old, you're ready to make a pearl. It's a lot like a human skin graft. You're basically taking cells from one part of an oyster and you're introducing them into the body of another oyster. And if all goes well, those cells will secrete pearl. And along with the tissue, you also put a small nucleus between 6 and 8 millimeters, and the tissue will grow over the nucleus and form a pearl. So then once the pearl comes out, there's what we call a surgreffe, which is a second graft, and the pearl is gently removed and it's replaced by another nucleus about the same size as the pearl. So this enables us to obtain a much larger pearl in the second generation of that oyster.
Essentially what we have done is ask the question, do pearl oyster farms have an effect on fish biodiversity in the lagoon? Well, we're doing what are called roving censuses. We enumerate all of the different species of fishes that we see and their relative abundance. It turns out that around pearl oyster farms there's a lot of additional food that might be available for fish. So where there are pearl oysters in their cages, there's lots of things growing on those cages and growing on the pearl oysters themselves. And fish and other organisms like to feed on everything that's growing on the oysters and growing on the oyster cages. Our data is very preliminary at present, but it turns out that those fishes that tend to feed on the things that are growing on the pearl oysters themselves appear to be in higher abundance around oyster farms. If you have healthy water quality, then you're going to have healthy pearls. If you have healthy water quality, you're going to have lots of the right kinds of fishes that are going to help to clean the oysters and the oyster racks.
Actually, that's really the nicest thing about pearl farming, or the message is that if you want to have top quality pearls, you need to really protect your environment. The more sensitive you are to that and the more responsible you are about that, the better the quality of pearls you get. People buy from wholesalers who buy from traders, and they assort the pearls so that they're matching quality. Nobody knows anything about the origin. Of course, they're Tahitian pearls, but you have 200 or 300 pearl farms that these pearls could come from. And I think as soon as you can actually know where the pearl comes from, or tell a story of what's happening here, then you can get a premium.
There are far more fish in the area in which we farm pearls now than when we got there well over 20 years ago. That's something that I'm really proud of. It's motivated lots of farms to employ the techniques that we use, mostly cleaning our oysters with the fish instead of with pressure hoses like the industrial farms do. Challenging as it might be, I'd love to see a sustainable certification for pearls someday. Hopefully we'll be at the forefront of that. If I could leave behind a legacy, it would be a legacy of caring for our oysters, caring for our lagoon, caring for the fish, caring for our people. That's really what's most important to me.